Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and today we are going to be going over the Survivalist weapons from worst to best, just like we've done with the rest of the classes in this, with the exception of Medic. I plan on doing that one last because Medic is kind of strange. Survivalist is another one that is very strange. They only have 3 weapons that technically belong to them, whereas every other class has multiple weapons, but since they are the jack-of-all-trades class, they can use everybody's weapon. So what I figured I would do is go through their weapons and rank them from worst to best, just these 3, and then talk about which classes' weapons are worst to best for them. So let's begin with their first weapon, starting out at number 3, because like I said, Survivalist only has 3 weapons. We have the Freeze Thrower. Now, I wouldn't say that the Freeze Thrower is a bad weapon by any means. I would say that it's actually pretty good. It's a very utility-based weapon and can really serve the team a lot of good. It's not so great in solo, but in a group setting, it can be pretty useful. It's a tier 3 weapon. It has 100 fuel in it. It weighs 7. On direct hit, it does 10 damage from its freezing with its primary fire at a 600 rounds per minute rate of fire, or rate of freezing, and also doing splash damage to enemies nearby it. With its secondary fire, it fires out like a shotgun. It fires out 8 pellets to do 35 damage. This is at a much slower rate of fire than the actual spray. It can also leave ice on the ground, similar to how the flamethrower can leave flames on the ground and deal damage over time, which is pretty nice. Of course, this can inflict the freezing status to enemies, which makes them completely immobilized and very easy to break. So it's very useful for that. Its upgrades actually increase its freeze power by quite a bit with 40% increments, but that's not the same as its shotgun power. It only goes up by 15% each time you upgrade it for the shotgun. Going up to a max weight of 9. 9 weight is still manageable, especially with Survivalist, because you can take ammo vest, or weapon harness, sorry. And then you can have another 11 weight to use, which is pretty nice. Coming in at number 2, we have the Kilowatt. This is a tier 5 Survivalist weapon. This is a fully automatic assault rifle type of weapon that shoots out lightning, or a laser. With its primary fire, it shoots out lightning that hits enemies. This does inflict the EMP status to enemies. This weapon holds 50 rounds in it. It weighs 8. It does 50 damage a shot with a 700 round rate of fire, which is pretty good. It also counts as ballistic damage as an assault rifle, which is also pretty good. The primary fire I use quite often with the Kilowatt. It's kind of weird to get used to, though, because you can actually see the projectile moving, but it seems to hit the enemy before the animation actually shows, so it kind of functions more like a regular assault rifle than what you would think, or at least kind of what the game is showing you. With its secondary fire, you can charge up a microwave beam that you can shoot out of the gun. This, of course, does microwave damage. This does 40 damage per second with the same rate of fire as weapons like the microwave gun. So it's pretty quick. It can deal a lot of damage to a single target, but it does have limited range, just like the microwave gun. Just pretty much think of the secondary fire as a microwave gun. You just have to charge it up. It's technically more powerful than the microwave gun's primary fire. This weapon, I honestly don't take too often. It's not a bad weapon or anything like that. It's just, it costs a lot to get a tier 5 weapon. It doesn't hold the most ammo, and I usually want to pair it with something else, which, again, for 8 weight isn't that bad. You can definitely do it with Survivalist. And then the number 1 Survivalist weapon I would give to the HRG Arc Generator. Speaking of microwave guns, this is the model of it, just in the HRG form. This is a tier 4 weapon. This weapon shoots out lightning with both of its primary and secondary fires. It weighs 9. It holds 90 rounds in it. You can either fire the primary fire, which shoots out a lightning beam, dealing 21 damage to the first enemy that you're targeting and hitting, but it can bounce lightning to multiple enemies, creating an arc and hitting multiple enemies, dealing lesser damage to each of them. With its secondary fire, it fires out a giant orb. This orb deals a lot of damage to all enemies. It moves fairly slow, though, so you kind of have to lead your shots, and it will just completely dissolve or disintegrate once it hits a hard surface like a floor, ceiling, wall. So you want to aim it pretty much as long as you can. You want to find a really long line of sight to shoot it down so that it can hit as many enemies as possible. If it hits enemies directly, it does 220 damage. It also does chain lightning, similar to the primary fire, doing 25 damage. This can go through an enemy, hitting them with the actual sphere of it, and then bouncing lightning back to them, as well as bouncing lightning to any other enemies around it. It's a really fun weapon to use. It's probably one of my favorite weapons, actually. It also does double damage towards any of the bosses. so you get even more damage against bosses, which makes this weapon really strong in boss wave. You can get one upgrade to this. The one upgrade adds 15% more damage. The 15% more damage is added both to the primary and the secondary fire of this weapon. It does go up to a weight of 10, which is still manageable, as I've said, with weapon harness. Even without weapon harness, you can get some decent weapons for around 5 weight or less. You could get something like C4 or the Hemoclobber or like the Medic SMG Medic Pistol. Anything like that are all pretty good weapons to pair with this weapon if you don't want to take weapon harness. Alright, so those are all the weapons of Survivalist ranked from worst to best. Now let's talk about the classes from worst to best, at least which weapons you don't want to take and which weapons you do want to take with Survivalist. So there's 9 other classes and we'll just go through them. Starting out at number 9, we have Firebug. Unfortunately, Survivalist does not get really any bonuses towards Firebug's weapons. They don't get bonus microwave damage, they don't get bonus fire damage, they don't get any bonus effects from the fire. So it's just a class that you can't utilize most of their weapons. You can still take things like the Dragon's Breath, the Spitfire, the MAC-10. All those weapons work okay, or the Husk Cannon. All of those weapons do count as cross-perk weapons, and you can better use them. However, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for you as Survivalists to take something like the Helios rifle when you could take other rifles. Not saying the Helios rifle would be bad, but you just have better options. Same with something like the flamethrower or something like the cock and burn. Don't really make a whole lot of sense with you. Sure, that you can kill small enemies with them pretty easily, but for that amount of weight, you could take something better, especially for the price. Or, of course, you could just take a trash killing weapon that is less weight and stronger for you. So Firebug is at the bottom of the list here for weapons to take from. Coming in at number 8 spot is Commando. Commando is also not a great class to take weapons from. Now that's not to say all of their weapons are bad, and the cross-perk weapons are actually quite good from Commando. However, any of the weapons that aren't cross-perk weapons, there's almost no reason to take with Survivalist, with the exception of maybe the minigun or the stoner if you just want a dedicated trash-killing weapon that you can still get the reload bonuses from. All other specifically Commando weapons don't make a whole lot of sense for you to take. And what I mean by this is weapons that are not cross-perk with Commando. So there's no reason to take something like the AR-15 with Survivalist. The Bullpup you don't really get a bonus from. The AK is okay, but still not great. Something like the M16 or the FAL is pretty good, but you can run it with both level 5 perks. That's what makes those weapons good. And of course, like the medic ARs are good too, but they're medic weapons, not necessarily Commando weapons. At number 7, we have SWAT's weapons. SWAT's weapons are also in kind of an odd spot for Survivalist. They are very good trash-killing weapons, and they'd be pretty good to take early on. However, you aren't going to take the majority of them because they all function as the same weapon, more or less. They're going to be your primary trash-killing weapon. So regardless of which one you take, whether you want something like the MP7 or the P90 for a lot of bullets, or the Vector for really fast shooting, or even the nail gun. The nail gun's kind of the odd one out here. The nail gun actually does have more of a purpose, I would say, because it does do piercing damage. But the rest of the weapons, you know, you have trash-killing weapons, and if you want that, then SWAT might be the way to go. But at the same time, it feels like almost all the weapons in SWAT fill really the same role. So that's why they get number 7. At number 6, we have Gunslinger. Gunslinger has quite a few weapons that you can take, and they are very cheap a lot of the time because you can just take one of them. So again, it'd be a great weapon early on. Taking something like a single Desert Eagle, a single 1911, a single 500 Magnum would all be perfectly fine. And a lot of these weapons do count as cross-perk weapons with both Gunslinger and with Sharpshooter, so some of them do fill both those roles pretty well. There's a pretty decent amount of options with Gunslinger. I just feel like there's better options with some of the other classes, so that's why they get 6 here for Survivalist weapons. Coming in at number 5, we have Demo. Demo pretty much just gets here because of how much damage you can do with a lot of their weapons. Weapons like the Kaboom Stick, the Seal Squeal, the RPG, all of them are really, really strong and can pair really well with a lot of other weapons because you do have the weapons harness, so you can have more weight. So you're not restricted to the weapons like Demo is, where you only have 15 weight with them, so you have to kind of price out what you want. Whereas with Survivalist, you get essentially 20 weight, so you can take something like an RPG and a AA-12 if you wanted. and use that to your heart's content, and it would be really strong. So that's why Demo just kind of lands here in the middle of our list. At number 4, we have Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter has a lot of very powerful weapons. Things like the center fire go well, especially since they're cross perk weapons, so you can use them both with either level 5 perk. Weapons like the railgun can hit really hard. You can also carry the M99 anti-material rifle with Survivalist much easier than you can with Sharpshooter. So you do have some really powerful options there. The FAL also counts as a cross-perk weapon, so you have a lot of really strong options, and if you want a hard-hitting weapon, Sharpshooter is a good place to go. Coming in at number 3, we have medic weapons. Medic weapons are always going to be a solid choice, simply because they provide so much utility for you and the team. They're probably going to pay for themselves, at least something like a pistol or submachine gun likely will. So you're just going to get lots more money, you're going to be able to heal, plus quite a few of them count as cross-perk weapons. So you can take something like the medic ARs, assuming you're taking those perks. At number 2, we have Berserker weapons, simply because Berserker weapons give you a ton of utility. If you're running Melee Expert with Survivalist, then all of Berserker's weapons become extremely strong for you, except for a few that are ranged. Even the ranged ones aren't really bad options. But taking weapons like the Hemoclobber, just so that you can constantly heal and block, all of these weapons are great for blocking. If you want to take something like the Bone Crusher and be extremely tanky, something like the Eviscerator and really never run out of ammo, or just take something really hard hitting like the Pulverizer, which could count as a cross perk weapon with both Demo and with Berserker. So you get additional reloads with them too. You just have a lot of really good options here, and just taking even a low weight weapon, something like the Croval, would be really good for you as Survivalist, just so that you get the bonus mobility from running around and the bonus tankiness just from blocking. And number 1 goes to Support. Support just has a really strong, well-rounded loadout overall. All of their weapons are really good. So buying any of the shotguns at really any point in the game is going to be good for you. Weapons like the Frostfang also count as a melee weapon, so you get bonus movement speed while you have it out. You have enough weight to carry a lot of their guns like the Doomstick or the AA-12. Early weapons like the Boomstick are really strong, even without the tighter choke with it. And weapons like the M4 are just all around well-rounded. That's why I'd put Support at number 1 of weapons to just take with Survivalist. In general, it's very easy for most people to run a lot of Support's weapons because they are quite forgiving. So this has been a bit of a different worst to best list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Thank you guys so very much for coming here and watching this. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. That way you get notifications whenever I post these kinds of videos. As a reminder to everybody, I do stream every day except for Mondays and Thursdays. So swing on by the stream and say hi. Feel free to ask questions, and usually we have open lobbies so people can hop in and play too if they would like to. Anyway, thanks everybody for coming. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye.